Taylor Swift was right. August slipped away like a bottle of wine, and now it is officially fall. It's September and I am so excited. Hey, no, Mabel, oh, sweetheart. Oh, that was embarrassing. Don't worry, it wasn't caught on camera. First she tries attacking my camera, and then she tries to jump up on my desk and fails. Poor sweetie, you're crazy. You're crazy. It's going to be her first fall. She is just barely 6 months old. Me and my Halloween colored cats, I do feel like it's very appropriate. And like I said, I know it's just barely September, we're not past the equinox yet, but I for one consider this officially autumn. The season of the witch. I am so ready. Anyway, this is going to be a little early fall reading vlog, and please forgive my congestion voice. I know it is so bad. I don't even want to hear myself speak right now, but it basically turned September and I got hit with a virus. Naturally, I am just barely getting over it and I still sound like this. I probably will for the next few days. I do have a lovely stack of potential fall reads to choose next, but right now I am currently reading Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson. This is the second book in the Stormlight Archive, and yeah, she's almost 1,100 pages, which it's a lot. Okay, it's daunting, but the first book was also about 1,100 pages, The Way of Kings, and I thought that was 100% worth every single page. And so far, this one is too. I'm a big fantasy girl, a big Brandon Sanderson girl, and I just love this series. I love all of his books. I'm only 382 pages into this book, which, yes, is longer than some whole books, but for this one is only about a third of the way done. So I really want to get cracking and get some good reading done this weekend. And then I will choose probably one of these lovely books. 3 out of 4 of these are new. Anyway, we have Divine Rivals, Where the Dark Stands Still, The Spell Shop, and What Moves the Dead. I think all of these are going to be awesome early fall reads, and they're all ones I am super excited to get to. I don't know which one I'm going to pick next. I am very much a mood reader. It could even, in fact, not be one of these at all. So we'll see, but first we are going to tackle the rest of Words of Radiance. I just realized I hit record and hadn't taken my lens cap off, but hi, it's the next day. I didn't do much reading last night, to be honest. I mostly just watched SVU. I only read up to page 450 yesterday in Words of Radiance, and I realized I never actually said what this series is about. I'm not going to say anything specifically about Words of Radiance, of course, because this is the second book, but Way of Kings, the first book, is truly epic. It is a 5 out of 5 star book for me, and I'm pretty stingy with my 5 stars, to be honest, and that book absolutely deserves it. It is difficult to describe this series just because these are huge books. It is a deep, epic, amazing, expansive fantasy series, and I sometimes don't even really know where to start. If that sounds like something you'd enjoy, go for it. If you like a big, amazing fantasy book like Game of Thrones or The Name of the Wind, you'll probably really enjoy this series, The Stormlight Archive, or if you just like Brandon Sanderson, I think he is such an incredible author, not just because he's good at what he does, he has great characters, great plots, imaginative worlds, and magic systems. I think he makes them fairly accessible, even in these giant, epic books. He introduces everything in a way that it does, to me, seem pretty digestible and understandable. He's not just throwing everything at you all at once in an info dump. He really takes you on this journey exploring the characters and the world. In the very beginning of the first book, a mysterious assassin in white kills a king, and this sets a giant war in motion. And we follow a few different characters. I would say there are 4 main characters though. This assassin who killed the king, who is actually an unwilling assassin. We also follow a healer who was turned soldier, then slave. His name is Kaladin. I love Kaladin so much. He is really going through it, especially in the first book. He has quite the tragic story. He is also developing these strange magical abilities that haven't been seen for hundreds of years. We're also following Dalinar. Dalinar is the GOAT. Like, he is the coolest, most badass warrior general there is. He is also the brother of the king who was assassinated. So he's fighting in this war, and about 5 years into it, he starts having these strange visions about the past and about this book that he's become obsessed with, that his brother was obsessed with before he died, called The Way of Kings, of course. Then we also follow Shallan, and Shallan is out to try and become the ward of this scholar named Josna. However, her intentions aren't all that innocent. She's actually trying to steal a magical device from Josna in order to save her family. And that is just the bare bones of what this story and these characters are about, because this series, like I said, it is expansive. The first book is over 1,000 pages. Every single book is over 1,000 pages. There is so much, and even having finished the first book, I feel like I only scratched the surface of this world, which, I don't know about you, I love that. I love having a big, epic fantasy world to dive into. The sequel, Words of Radiance, starts off basically where the last book ended, and we're following pretty much the same cast of characters. I won't say anything about their plots or anything, no spoilers, but I am definitely really enjoying this turn of events. There is a big dramatic thing that happens, let's say 100 or so pages in, and I don't buy it. I don't think this thing that happened is actually happening the way that the characters think it is, if that even makes sense. And I'm so ready for that big reveal, and there's just a lot of interesting, magically mysterious stuff going down. I feel like that's all I can really say without spoiling it, but I'm definitely enjoying this as much as the first one so far. Also, I'm using this beautiful bookmark. This is relatively new. Seems very fitting, and it has this really cute tassel with a star charm that Mabel, who's sleeping very innocently next to me right now, keeps stealing out of my book, and I keep losing my place. She's just so attracted by the tassel, and I don't blame her, but she is a thief. Actually, the other night, she stole a fettuccine noodle out of my bowl and ate it. Yeah, I'm also really enjoying all the illustrations in this book. This series will occasionally have little illustrations and pictograms, which I love. And this edition, I don't know if it's just this edition or if the mass market versions do too. I have like the big, chunky, tall paperbacks, but it has these beautiful color. This is supposed to be Shallon, our female main character, and it's so pretty. Been a couple days and I have an update. I am now on page 752, so I only have like 300 or so pages left. I won't say anything for spoilers, but the end of section 3 involves a duel. And oh my god, I was literally sitting here like, what are you doing? Like, this is crazy. And there's a line that Kaladin speaks to Dalinar. I'm not gonna say it, but if you know, you know. During the duel, Kaladin says something to Dalinar, and that was a hard-hitting line. That was a baller line, and I literally texted my brother because he's read this series. Even though I'm the one who introduced him to Brandon Sanderson, he's already read this series before me. I messaged him and I was like, damn, that is a cold line. Like, that is so good. I'm just so invested. Not that I wasn't before. I just feel like the end game is really starting to shape up, and I love a good end game. I really do. As much as I love exploring characters and side quests and stuff like that, a good finale, oh, it just really gets me. I did it. I finished Words of Radiance, and oh my god, it was amazing. This might be even better than the first book, Way of Kings, which I don't know if I can really say that, because to me, Way of Kings is perfection. But I do think that this one might be even stronger. I don't even know where to start. I'll just say, first off, I loved it. Every second, every page, every perspective, every storyline was epic and enthralling and amazing. And I just can't recommend this series enough. This is the fantasy series and world that I dream of. This is perfection in fantasy, and that is something I never say. I'm gonna give this book 5 out of 5 stars, same as I gave Way of Kings, and I just want to take a second to share how rare that is for me. I admit I'm pretty stingy with my 5-star ratings. I know this is different for other people. If it's their favorite book, if they love it, they will give it 5 stars. But for me, a 5-star isn't just a reflection of how much I loved a book. It's also a reflection of how well executed I think the story was. And there are some books that, again, are my absolute favorites that I love, but there are very minor little things that I think if this were different, it could be even that much better. But The Way of Kings and Words of Radiance, I truly wouldn't change a single thing. Not in the 1100 pages of this book or the other book. That is how amazing I think they are, and I love them that deeply. That is, to me, why they deserve a 5-star rating. In the first one, Shallon's story is a little bit less exciting, a little bit less action-packed compared to Kaladin and Dalinar's stories. Whereas in this book, I think that they are all on a more even playing field. So that is why I would say that this one might be even better. But in terms of how much I love them, how deeply I cared about the characters and the stories, I would say they're equal. The last 300 pages, let's say, were insane. Absolutely crazy. I'm not gonna say anything to spoil this book, but it was incredible. The Sanderlanche was Sanderlanching. He always does a big epic finale and he crushes it. On the back, Patrick Rothfuss says, "I loved this book. What else is there to say?" And that is exactly how I feel, so I'm going to end it there. I am going to emboss it because I have not stamped this yet with my little personalized book embosser. So let's do that, and then I will share which book I'm going to read next. It's the next day. Did I do any reading yesterday? No, none. I have some fun plans for today, actually. I've had a really chill morning, but I am gonna actually do some reading today. I am, and I'm going to go to the bookstore, the library, and the cider mill. Our local bookstore moved locations. It's the same, store owned by the same people, but they moved to a larger storefront, which I'm really excited about. I certainly wouldn't mind an even larger bookstore. So I really want to go check that out. And I do have a book to pick up from the library, which will be my next read after I decided on picking up Where the Dark Stands Still by A.B. Poranek. I hope I'm pronouncing that somewhat correctly, but I just really feel in the mood for a fairy tale-like book, and this one is definitely that. This is about a girl named Liska who has strange magical powers. So one day she goes out into basically like the spirit wood in search of this magical, mythical flower that grants you a wish. She wants to get rid of her magic so that she can live a normal, happy life in her village. But then she runs into this like god of the woods. This demon god figure is called the Leszy, L-E-S-Z-Y. I find that very difficult to pronounce, but anyway, the Leszy makes her a deal. She can have the flower after 1 year of servitude with him. So Liska is swept off to his crumbling, creepy manor in the woods, and she is trying to unravel all of the dark secrets, especially because there is something awakening in the woods. This definitely sounds like a nice, kind of eerie, spooky, fairy tale, whimsical fall read, and I am so ready. I also love this cover. I do hate the stickers though. I'm gonna have to peel those off, but I think the back might be even cooler. Alrighty, I didn't end up filming anything else yesterday except for some clips of the bookstore and of the cider mill, but I did actually start Where the Dark Stands Still. I got up to page 74. It's definitely a quick, easy read so far. I really like the writing style. It's very lyrical, but I wouldn't say it's overdone or purple prose. I'm really enjoying the setting. We got right to it where Liska went out into the woods immediately at the start of the book, and now she is in this creepy manor house living with the warden of the wood, and it is a sentient house, which is one of my favorite tropes. I've read I think 2 other books this year with a sentient house, and it's just one of my favorite gothic staples, so I'm absolutely eating this up. Okie dokie, I only have 50 pages left in Where the Dark Stands Still. I had such a difficult time putting this down last night with only those few pages left, but I do work a 9 to 5. I do have to go to bed on time, but I am really loving this book. If you are a fan of anything Ghibli, of Uprooted, The Bear and the Nightingale, Beauty and the Beast, you'll definitely enjoy this. It's giving cozy, whimsical fantasy, and I love that vibe. But I will say, I don't know if I fully buy the depth of the characters' feelings towards one another, especially because this book takes place over, I think, only like 2 or 3 months tops. And I just don't think I believe it, to be honest. And I also don't think I really buy that Liska has learned to use her magic that she's been shunning and hiding away her entire life in only a couple of months. I do think this could have benefited from seeming to have taken place over a longer period of time. That would have made it more realistic to me. And also, to be honest, I am studiously ignoring the fact that the Lezi, or Elias, we learn his name is 700 years old, and Liska is 17. I know he doesn't look old, and he looks young and pretty and whatever, but he is 7 centuries old, and she is a baby. So I know this is common, but the older I get, the more this weird age gap, even between paranormal or mystical creatures, really just freaks me out. I did not, in fact, update you guys after I finished Where the Dark Stands Still a couple days ago, but I really loved it and I definitely recommend it. Again, it is reminiscent of Howl from Howl's Moving Castle and Uprooted and the like. I will say that in that way, it's not the most unique story I've ever read, but I do think it holds its own in that category. And I do think that the ending was a bit different than you would expect to see, and in that way I also really enjoyed that. I thought it was the most appropriate and satisfying ending, in my opinion. Although I could definitely see some people not necessarily loving it, but that's up for you to judge. Overall, I think I would give this a 4 or like 4.25 stars. I really enjoyed it, but I wouldn't say it's something that's going to stick with me for years and years to come. Anyway, that was Where the Dark Stands Still. And I already dove into another book. This is on my fall TBR. Actually, so was Where the Dark Stands Still. So I have done a great job with this so far. But this is The September House by Carissa Orlando. Sorry for the shiny library cover. I actually started listening to this as an audiobook I think in June maybe, and I stopped a couple chapters in, not because I wasn't liking it, but because it seemed like the perfect September vibe, and I liked the audiobook, but I do prefer to read things physically, so that's exactly what I've done. I'm about 50% of the way through this book, and I'm really enjoying it. This is kind of a horror, and I say that meaning that it's also kind of funny. It has a little bit of a dark humor to it, and it's a little bit camp. So in this book, we follow a woman in her 50s named Margaret, and she's lived in this haunted house for like 4 years now, and she's basically just gotten used to all of the bumps in the night, the creepy ghosts, and that demonic thing that lives in the basement. She's very strict about following the rules that she's made. Like, don't get close to the little ghost boy Elias or he'll bite you. It's easy to live with him if you just avoid him. And stuff like that. It's so funny reading the nonchalant way she discusses the goings on at the house. And basically the house gets uber haunted in September, and that is when her daughter happens to be visiting because Margaret's husband Hal went missing about a month ago. He left and no one has heard from him since. So the daughter, she's a little bit estranged from her parents, but she's decided, I'm coming into town, you cannot deter me any longer, and we are going to figure out what happened to my dad. And it's September, so the house is going through its blood weeping down the walls, screaming at night phase, and she is just desperate to make sure her daughter doesn't have to go through this. What I will say is that this book is kind of a typical haunted house story, and there's a lot of
common tropes like the blood on the walls, but I really enjoy the voice and the interesting perspective taken on this story. You know, I am Margaret. Like, if a house was haunted, but it was this beautiful Victorian home with original hardwood floors, I could look past a lot of ghostly happenings myself, I think. As long as the ghosts weren't hurting me, I would be totally fine staying in a haunted house if it was this beautiful Victorian mansion. But yeah, I think it is so fun. It also seems like it's a bit of an allegory for domestic abuse, which she experienced with her husband, Hal. So I think it's going to be really interesting. The only thing I could maybe complain about is that because Margaret is so nonchalant about all the creepy things, they don't seem as scary as they would because she's not scared of them. But for me, I feel like that's not really the point of this book, and overall, I'm really enjoying this. Hello and welcome to the end of this vlog. I have had such a good start to this reading month or reading season because I loved all 3 books I read in this video. First of all, let's talk about The September House, because last I mentioned I had read like 50% of it, and I just inhaled this book. If you like speculative fiction, if you like haunted house stories, I think you will really enjoy this. It's such a fresh, original take on a haunted house horror story. Again, I think I already mentioned it is a metaphor or allegory for domestic abuse, how it can happen slowly and it sort of conditions you over time to accept it. And that is so perfect, honestly, in a haunted house. I thought that was such an interesting take. I've never read anything like this. It was funny, it was interesting. I guess my only complaints are, yeah, it really wasn't that scary. The ending didn't surprise me, but I thought it was pretty enjoyable. And I guess it was a little bit on the nose, you know, this whole allegory for domestic abuse. I really enjoyed it, and that's what made this book what it is. But I do feel like maybe it could have been done with a little bit more nuance, but to be honest, that is such a minor complaint. I still would give this a maybe 4.25 out of 5 stars. Really highly recommend this book. And the other 2 books I read, Where the Dark Stands Still and Words of Radiance, both got really great scores as well. This I would give a 4.25, and Words of Radiance got 5 out of 5 stars, baby. This was absolutely incredible. Not only one of the best books I've read this year, but one of the best books and best series I've ever read in my whole life. Yeah, overall, I had such a great time with all of these. They were all such amazing reads, and I am just so happy to have had banger after banger in this video. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you're having a good fall wherever you live, and if you've read any of these, let me know what you think, and I want to know what you're reading this fall and if you like it.